Dear Father in heaven, we are always grateful to sit in this capacity as servants of these fine people who live in this community and to make wise decisions on their behalf. We ask throughout this meeting today that we can have thy guidance as we make such decisions and plan for the future in a way that will be beneficial to all. We ask these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. So we'll now call our Committee of the Whole meeting to order. As Deputy Mayor, I'm Councillor Kronen, and I'm chairing this meeting. And we'd just like to ask for a few rules, basic rules. And the first rule is respect. We all show respect for one another and for everyone who is in the chamber and to anyone else. Be respectful. The other rule is just be present so that we stay focused and involved. Our CEO, Jeff, has informed me that he did not order supper, so he expects us to be forthright and get through the agenda tonight. So I will. Before we have a motion to adopt the agenda, we would move 7D up to press 7A. So that Hawk can present. That's the only change that I have. So I'd like a motion for
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, great. We'd like to anything on the consent agenda. We'll just skip that one. We have Jason O'Connor here with Axia, who is going to give us about a 10-minute presentation.
Yeah. Just thinking a little bit touch forward and back.
Okay. Mayor Kronen, Councillor, thanks so much for having me in your beautiful town tonight. It was a pleasure meeting you at the Digital Future Symposium. We had a brief chat about Cardston. And so I'll just go a little more formally through what we're presenting to rural Alberta. And you can decide whether or not this is something that might be right for your town. So Axia Fiber in your community. A little quick agenda here, introduction, why fiber, why Axia, the next communities we're doing, and then some questions. So who's Axia? So our roots are in rural Alberta. We did win the contract to build the SuperNet back in 2001. Since then, we've gone to diversify our business and grown into the other things. One of the other things is what I'm here to present tonight. It's called Axia FiberNet. Regardless what happens with the future of the Alberta SuperNet, the FiberNet is like a SuperNet ISP that we're rolling out to just strictly rural Alberta communities that are somewhat underserved or not happy with the internet services that they have right now. So it's a next generation fiber optic network that we bring right to the home in rural Alberta and the business. It's incredibly transformational infrastructure. I'll talk more about that. We've done it in USA, we've done it in France, we did almost all of Singapore and good chunks of Spain. So we're quite good experts in the field. So why fiber? Why
It's a little touchy, sorry.
It's a little touchy, I got it though, I'll get used to it. So for demands for copper and cable and wireless in Alberta, around the world, they're important. People need the internet to do their business, do their daily lives, but the demand for fiber is the one thing between now and the next 25 to 50 years that's going to really drive innovation and speed and throughput for internet and other things that are delivered, such as telephone and TV over fiber optic. So this is me, 250,000 Canadian customers what we call cut the cord, and that's basically cutting their TV cord and their copper telephone cord and just strictly are going to everything over internet. And that was in 2014, so that's 250,000 Canadian customers. That's expected to triple in the next 3 years. So all the services that you need, all the triple play will be delivered over fiber, and that's what we're looking at. So why Axia Fiber?
There we go.
This is my favorite one, and Mayor Kronen, I know you come from an economic development background, so I think that you'll understand what exactly this creates, this transformational infrastructure could create for economic development in this area. It's very similar to what I've seen driving down here in terms of the what happened with the water and the irrigation back when this land didn't really have any, not so much in this area, but in the outer Liars, where they needed water to do their thing and transform that area of the province into a place where people could do business, grow their crops, and build a profitable future. Fiber optic infrastructure, I look at it as a very, very similar thing. It's a highway to your door. It retains and attracts the next generation of people who grew up with these tablets in their hands and expect this kind of speeds in the future as we go forward. Fiber is super reliable because it's under the ground and it doesn't rust because it's glass. And it really differentiates your community from the cities. So much that if I talk to you about what I get in Calgary for internet service as opposed to what you could get here through this, it's 5 to 100 times more than I can get in the city, just because the incumbents are leveraging this old copper architecture. Well, here you have the chance to just move to this fiber infrastructure, and it changes everything. The last part there is the open access model. What we build is not proprietary like some of the incumbents might do. We build infrastructure throughout your town if you choose to go with us and your community has an appetite for it. It's infrastructure that anyone can use, so we don't lock it in and monopolize it. It's open. So ONET can deliver their TV, their phone, TELUS can deliver their triple play, Shaw can come in. So instead of having 2 or 3 lines to every home, we want 1 copper line to every home. And yes, they pay us to use it, but that's kind of the model that we're looking for, is 1 line to each home, transformational infrastructure that's open and competitive market. So why Axia Fiber? Well, we're just focusing on rural Alberta. We don't do cell phones, we don't do TV. We build fiber optic infrastructure for rural Alberta, and our focus is to do it with no public money. So we invest if we see that there's a significant appetite for it in the community, which is 30% of the serviceable addresses, which I'll get to. So 2015 communities we're working on. So we're live in Vulcan right now. We're currently just about done the construction phase in Manton and Nobleford. And there's a bunch right around you that I can't officially say who they are that are about to get it. Southern Alberta has been really interested in this model. So are you a 2016 community? I hope so. But I know you have to do your due diligence and look at what you have currently in place. So following our success in Vulcan, we're looking for progressive communities that say, hey, you know what, we want this infrastructure. No, we don't necessarily want to build it on our own. And those are the communities we like, because we're the experts in this and we'd like to work with you on that. And part of us working with you is working with your council and your admin and our marketing team to get the word out and find out, hey, is this something the community really, really needs moving forward? So how can you be the next community in 2016? Well, I think the next 2 slots are filled for 2015. So for 2016, it's first come, first serve. And the way we pick communities, or I guess the way they pick themselves, essentially, is to go on our website and fill out a non-binding expression of interest. So there's no credit card or anything. It's just, here's my address, phone number, we need it here, or we want it here, whether it's a business or a home. So we figure out the amount of serviceable addresses, which are business and rural, and then that 30% of that number, once we hit that, and you want us to, we will come invest and build that network to every home within the town at no cost to you. So it's pretty neat. It's I call it kind of a hybrid of a public-private model because we're open access. So we would help you be one of the first in 2016 to get those expressions of interest if you so choose to work with us. So what tools can you use? Well, you guys know your community way better than I do. It's beautiful, though. I really enjoy the drive out here. I'd love to come out here more. So some communities like the mail out. We would do a mail out through your utility bills or just a regular post office mail out. Community newsletters. We've got local businesses. Churches are a big one for spreading the word. Town halls, community events, and social media. And I'm available to come to community events and help out and flip burgers. And we can find a creative way to, I guess, talk to as many people as possible at one time, but find out, hey, is this something that the people actually want? And then go forward from there. So I'm going to go to questions right now, and I purposely made this one a little shorter because I think you guys kind of know a little bit about what's happening in your area with us. So
Turn some lights back on then.
yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I've got a couple, and then I'll turn to the council.
Okay.
Now, did you say that they would be pulled underground, or would you be overhead with your fiber? Just curious.
I didn't say actually, but
Oh.
we do either.
Oh, okay.
We kind of, if we decide to work together, then I kind of pull the construction crew in, and they look at your community and kind of draw a square or a circle around it, and say, okay, what do we have for infrastructure? If we have aerial, we'd love that, because we can work through the winter on pulling out.
Mhm.
If it's buried, then we like that too, it just takes a little longer, and there's some
Yeah.
gaps. So the construction phase takes about 6 months, if there's a
Mhm.
couple gaps within term there, then
So who makes that choice? Do you make it, or does
we do, yeah, with our contractors. So
whether you want to go underground or overhead?
yeah, in the past, we've noticed that some of the timelines that we want, because we're
Mhm.
quite a nimble company,
Mhm.
so when we approach the power pole owners, sometimes they're like 180 days out before they make a decision, and at that point, we don't wait for that, we'll go another route,
Mhm.
because it's just, we like to get it done.
Yeah, we own our own power poles.
Oh.
Yeah.
Excellent, yeah, so that makes it easy.
Okay. All right, and then are you a service provider for internet yourselves?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And it's something that I left out of the presentation, but I do have pamphlets over here. And I'll just tell you really quickly, the Waymore business and the Waymore living are separate. One's business and one's residential. Thank you. So what's really neat is the plans and pricing. This is the Waymore living.
Mhm.
So this is for a home. So our lowest plan, our introductory plan is 25 megabits symmetrical. So it's up as well as down. And it's all the time. It's not up to 25. You have a fiber to your house, you get it all the time, unless you're in another room on a tablet or something and the wireless in between the rooms
Mhm.
goes down a little bit. It's $60 a month.
Mhm.
And you can easily run all your NHL, NFL, Netflix, streaming, Apple TV, Roku, whatever you want. You can pretty much get everything except the Days of Our Lives, which my wife asked me to find it, I can't find it, I don't know. They don't deliver it streaming, so maybe they will. And then it goes up to 100 megabytes. You know, if you got a family with 10 people in a house, all with 3 devices each and gaming systems and that's the one that's going to do it for you. But what's really of interest, especially for economic development, is when you look at the Waymore business, we start at 25, but we go up to a gig. Now a gig, full symmetrical gig, $700 a month. You can run a data center off that. It's a tremendous amount of bandwidth up and down. So call centers, bigger businesses, 50 plus employees, they can come here and get that. You can't get this in the city. So that's the differentiating our community part of things that's beautiful for business. It's actually a really good price for it too. I've seen it over $30,000 for a full symmetrical gig with other companies. And then the installation fees for home are $199 because we have to either trench it in or go over the pole. And for business, it's $499 one time. And then fines around there. I'll leave these. Answer your questions.
Councillor, do you have any other questions?
So that 199, that brings you right up to your connection to the computer?
Yeah, it's just like any other service. We either trench it across your lawn and fix it up real nice, or we come in through the pole aerial And then we drill a little hole in your house, we give you a router. We set it all up with your computers, just like any other installation. When the tech leaves, you're running. Yeah, you're good to go.
Now, I have a question. You said there is a great appetite in southern Alberta for this type of service.
Yes.
But you also said that you're looking for the two towns that are going to really be very aggressive in trying to get that 30% in
Yeah.
order to get the service in 2016. Well, we kind of know already of two towns in there that are already pushing, already moving forward, which means that the choice is pretty close to made for 2016 from what we understand.
Well, it hasn't been actually released or decided yet, because we haven't hit that threshold of 30%.
Yet.
Not yet. So that's why I say it's open still, because we haven't officially said, yes, we're going here or there. But realistically, if we were looking at getting to 30% here, with the population here of just under 4,000 people?
358.
358 in there. So 30% of the serviceable addresses there would probably take us a few months, I think, anyway. So that puts us in the new year. So what I'd love to see is if you were aggressive at promoting this and people wanted it, which is the most important thing. You can promote it all you want, but people have to want it. Then it would be sometime in the spring, 2016, when we would actually get to the 30% here, which is okay, because then it could just be start the build, in that build season, and probably get done before the winter. So I'm really trying to get people to jump in quick and get us to that 30% so that we can get you probably 2016, early in the queue.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thanks.
But we're going to keep doing it, so if it's 2017, 2016.
Okay, just wondering, Tanya.
So did you say that Vulcan is the only community that's up and running at this point?
And
Yes.
Okay, so,
And that, for just about done, and you're welcome to contact the CEOs.
so we can,
CEOs
talk to
and-
them and see what kind of.
Oh, absolutely, Kirk Hoffman and Kevin Miller.
Mhm.
They're great supporters, and because we're in the construction phase, it's a good time to talk to them. So, hey, what's that municipal access agreement look like? How is it like to work with Axia?
There,
Yeah, go ahead.
there's another question. You said that you would come to town to promote if we were interested in having you do so with a barbecue or whatever. How fast can you set yourself up to set this thing?
Well, I'd have to look at the calendar, but I think we set this meeting up last week, or before. So I can move pretty quickly as long as my schedule allows for it. And if not, I also have a marketing team that can fill in. So if you do have an event coming up, and you do want to work with us to see what the appetite is, then let's see if it fits in the calendar. If I can't make it, I have a team who can. And we'll be there. One thing we did in Nobleford was they gave the fire chief a 10-year work, and they said, well, why don't you come to that, because half the town's going to be there. It turned out more like the whole town was there. And we put up a little booth, we bought some food, and then we said a little thing. The mayor gave out the award, and then everyone just came and asked questions after. And that was probably one of the more effective ones that I've seen, because it's kind of informal in terms of asking questions. So things like that.
Okay, we have a community awareness night coming up at the end of the month. And I wondered if that's too soon for you.
Maybe you could send me the details on that, and I'll see if we can make it happen. And
Okay.
maybe give me a few events if you know, and I can see if we can work it in for you.
All right, thank
Okay?
you.
I'd like to.
Did we get a third of the town to awareness night?
Yeah, we
We
get quite a few.
have quite a
1,000 people through there?
Yeah.
Oh, this.
We have a lot of people coming through.
Sure,
Oh,
yeah.
that would be great. I love that, because people can ask all sorts of questions. Just even if they're just not quite so
And their
tech-savvy.
families, it's
Yeah,
very
the
family
kids.
oriented.
The kids are the ones that sell the parents, is what I find. They know what's going on.
Games.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
yeah. Any other councillors that? have
Just
questions?
a question regarding the cost. So the infrastructure that you're putting into the town itself, there's no cost to the town, it's an investment that you guys are making?
Yeah.
Correct? And then as each individual house comes on, they pay their initial hookup fee, and then they didn't have access. So if they were doing that, and what would they do then for telephone service? How would that work then?
So they can choose to keep their copper line if they want, which some people are just really more comfortable with, which is fine. We do have a section on our website called Your Town, and it's basically, how do I get a Luma phone, which is the VoIP phone we recommend for fiber. And actually, you don't even have to change your phone, you just keep your old phone, keep your phone number. You order this couple of little things that you plug into the router online, comes in less than a week, and then you're hooked in, and you've got this wonderful, crisp fiber optic VoIP phone for about $4 a month, I think, for unlimited calling in Canada and the United States. So that we call that a culture of use, and it's educating the community. And those are things that we would help with the Facebook page, kind of like educate people. How do you get your football? How do you get your baseball? Sorry, I can't get your Days of Our Lives. How do you get your news? Things like that. And that's the way it's going, right? Because everything will be on demand. But some people like to keep their satellite TV too. I mean, it's just, and they like their show on Wednesday night at 9, and that's what they're used to, so they can keep that if they want. This is just a better internet package in that case.
Well,
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in, and Jeff will probably be in contact with you.
Okay.
I think so.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to leave you to the rest of your meeting here.
All right. Well,
Appreciate
great.
it.
Thank you so much. Okay. Well, we'd just like to have our adoption of the minutes now. If everybody's read it, any problem with the minutes, or are they okay? Yeah.
I'll move to adopt the minutes.
Okay, any questions? Okay, all in favor? All right, great, thank you very much. Okay, we'd like to move on to the 7D now, since Hawken is here to present. Now, what's in your background are basically the same as at the last council meeting. There wasn't anything different there, but Hawken has done a little research into comparisons of other communities and you know how our rates stack up, right?
Yeah,
Or you'd like to speak to that?
we've come up with some nicknames for some different bylaws and things that we're working on, and I was just sitting here thinking maybe we should call this one the Energizer Bunny bylaw. Keeps going and going.
Keep going.
But, yeah, I just wanted to visit some of the comparatives that we found. We looked at Raymond, McGrath, Fort McLeod, and Pincher Creek for water and sewer connection fees. Pincher Creek and Fort McLeod, they both, well, I should say Fort McLeod charges out at cost, and the town does the work. Pincher Creek, they leave it to, it's the responsibility of the developer or the property owner. And they can go out and find an excavator and plumber, and what they require is they look at the elevations and make sure it works in the development or in the permit stage. And then they require 24-hour notice for the actual connection event, where they connect to the town's infrastructure, where they want somebody from their public works to be there to make sure it's done right. But all in all, it's really the responsibility of the developer or the property owner. So I guess sort of similar to a cost model, at cost model, but it's the responsibility of the owner. McGrath, they have specific rates. It's, if you're doing water, sewer, it's $4,000. That includes the trenching and everything. They have a different rate if you're buying, if you're doing the connections in a new development. They charge $6,500. And what they do is they take the difference between the $4,000 and the $6,500, and they credit that to the developer. And it's kind of an incentive, I guess, or maybe just a reimbursement for some of the costs that the developer has incurred. So I guess in either way, it's about $4,000 to the town. Raymond, it's about $3,100. That's water, sewer. And I spoke with Curtis at Raymond, and he said that they haven't visited their costs for quite some time, and so he doesn't. None of them really knew exactly what the costs were. But that's how they charge it out. So, that being said, we have looked into our costs, and the way we figured the cost was on an equalized basis, because we used to charge it out just at cost, and if you lived on one side of the street, it might be $2,000, and if you lived on the other side of the street, it might be $5,000. It just depends on how much asphalt and sidewalk and whatnot that you had to go through to get to the place of the infrastructure. And so what we ended up doing was we just said, well, let's just equalize that and charge an average rate, no matter how far the resident has to go to connect. And so what we did was we figured a cost, average cost, if you just say, okay, on average, the infrastructure is going to be in the middle of the street. And the average distance to hook into that, we figured the cost on that for the trenching and the time and the machine time and then the materials for hooking onto the infrastructure. And the cost is $4,400. That's the average cost.
Currently.
Yeah. If we were to quote somebody and the infrastructure was in the middle of the road, that would be the quote today. So what we came with in the original, well, I guess last week in the bylaw, was $5,000. And the reason it's a little above the cost is we've always had a small margin in our connection fee. And that acts as a little bit of, it's like an off-site levy, and it's designed to cover some of the future maintenance costs for that connection. So that's just been the practice in the past, is to have a bit of a margin in there. So I guess in the end, $5,000 for a connection is a little bit higher than what you would pay in Raymond and McGrath, depending on where you bought in McGrath, I guess. So if you bought in a new development in McGrath, you'd be paying actually quite a bit more than what you'd pay in Cardston. If you bought an old lot in McGrath and wanted new connections, you'd be paying a little bit less. In Raymond, you're paying, based on our proposed rate, a couple $1,000s less, so that's quite a bit less. So that's kind of your comparative for the water and sewer. And then for electrical, we got some comparatives for town of Claresholm and town of Fort McLeod. And then we also compared it to Fortis. Claresholm and Fort McLeod, they both charge out at the cost of material, labor, and machine time. Fortis, same thing. They have an incentive program that covers up to the first approximately $2,000. And they say that typically, your typical residential connection won't need any more, won't go over that incentive amount. So somewhere in the $2,000 range for Fortis. Fort McLeod and Claresholm, they just say at cost, so I don't know what it costs really. We charge out about $3,000. So that is your comparison. So
Great, appreciate that. Now, this is like for the water and sewer, that's the property line, right? Just to the property line?
no, that's the connection to the house.
Oh, to the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So
all the trenching that you would.
I know when Joe had his done, they just went to the property line and he had to do it from the property line to his house with a private
That's
contract.
my understanding, but they've been wrong on that. Do you know, Jack?
The bylaw, and I thought it was to the home, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was to the home.
Okay, all right.
Did a rebate.
Check on that. Yeah, I was under the impression it was just to the property line, but anyway, all of these ones are the same, would be comparable in the, you know, the other communities to what we do. But like I say, I thought it was just.
No, you're right, it's to the property line.
To the property line.
Yeah, and that's in the bylaw here.
That's what I thought was in the bylaw. Property line.
Hawken, does this apply to, if I'm a developer and I'm building 6-row houses, townhouses, each property is going to be applied that cost?
Yeah.
Each individual unit?
Yeah, it's per connection.
I just want to ask on electrical. You said that Fortis on a residential doesn't believe it ever goes above 2,000? Is that, is that what you said?
If they do their investment program and feel that it generally, on a close proximity installation, that covers their cost for extension.
And then, so right now we're charging 32, but we're proposing to maybe increase to 7?
Not the residential. That's
That's-
rural
that's
residential.
business.
Okay.
So an out-of-town connection,
Maybe I didn't see the
I didn't see the
urban
rural either,
residential.
or the
But it is,
in-town, where is it?
it wasn't.
What is our in-town rate then?
or in-town rate,
I didn't see it here.
3,000. I think currently we're charging 2,900,
And you're wanting to go up to 3,
3,000, yeah, that's what,
so that's $100 more.
yeah. And I'm proposing an inflationary factor, shouldn't say I'm proposing, we're proposing. We have in the bylaw. Yeah. An inflationary factor, like, it seems to me like what happens, and, you know, Raymond is a bit of a case in point, you know, they said we haven't looked at our costs for maybe years. And so, I think it makes sense to put in an inflationary factor. Do 3%, something like that.
So, let me get something straight in my mind. You're saying that on one side of the street, which I can see, the services are already there. So taking it from there to there is a shorter distance, so therefore your costs aren't as much. But if you take it from the middle of the street, then it equalizes both ways, right? So
Yeah.
you're suggesting that everybody's gonna pay an equal rate no matter where they are on that street,
Yeah,
right? So the guys that are on the lucky side of the street are subsidizing the guys that are not, right?
yeah,
Basically,
basically,
is what we're saying.
yeah.
So you're proposing that we raise that rate by $100, and that's gonna cover it? Our costs are $2,900 right now?
For the electrical,
Yeah,
the cost for the electrical is a little bit under that.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a
but the
margin.
$100 is gonna allow for an inflationary factor?
Yeah. Well, it's the 2,900 plus an inflationary factor, yeah.
Okay, well, what is that inflationary factor? I'd kinda like to get that clarified in my mind. I'd like to pin it down to
$150.
$1 and cent.
100. It's going from 2,900 to 3,000.
3,000.
And then to 3,100 and 3,300, so afterwards. the
So
total is 150.
that's for 2016, what about 17, 18?
3,150, 3,300.
So they're gonna go up by $100 each year,
$150 each.
$150
Yeah.
each year thereafter.
Yeah. That's electrical.
Okay,
That's about 2%. No, what is it? No, no,
well, that's about 4%,
no.
5.
5%.
4 or 5%.
155%.
The other thing that I might, if I could point out too, is I think council should consider this too, is, you know, in Raymond, for example, if all you wanted was a water hookup, you can pay for just the water hookup. In our bylaw, the way it reads, you pay there's one amount, whether you get water and sewer or. And our rationale for that is, well, first of all, if you're building a new house, you gotta get both of them anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. But what we've seen before is, you know, especially with our urban renewal houses, they find the existing utility and then they just use that. And then a year or two later, it's all mucked up. It's 70 years old, 80 years old, and then it's our responsibility to come in and fix it at our cost. And, maybe they could have just put in a water or maybe just put in a sewer, but if we're gonna do almost all of the cost is the excavating and trenching. The actual plumbing parts are not very expensive. So if you're gonna go ahead and dig the trench, then while we're down there, let's just
Put it all there.
put it all in. And so pricing it this way, it makes it so that it's a no-brainer. We just put it all in. When we're down there, we just replace it all, it's all brand new. So, as far as the costing is concerned, we have a little bit of a margin to have that, sort of that off-site levy. But in my mind, the cost is about $4,400, and so anywhere between cost and a little bit of a margin, in my mind, would be wise, I guess. So those are my thoughts on it. I don't know that I have anything.
So, council, do we feel comfortable basically with the proposal that's before us on the utility rates and installations? Any comments?
Well, I know that previous council always thought that cost recovery was an important principle on which we should base our decision. And I think what Hauken is presenting is exactly a presentation made on that principle. Cost recovery is not always enjoyable to look at what cost recovery means, but sooner or later is the one that has a service that should pay. Otherwise, is everybody else subsidized, the one receiving the service? And why should it be so?
Okay, well, thank you then. We'll probably touch on this again in 8B when we talk about if we want to have a public hearing. Do you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to say, I am just a little worried if we do make a jump to, in some cases, we're almost double what it is to build, connect your home in another community. So just to be mindful of that and know, I understand the principle that we're going for, but there's also a competitive edge that we don't want to lose in doing that.
Yeah.
So
when we look at comparisons with other communities, we have to compare kind of the whole gamut. Like, are our taxes lower? And I know we've had comparative charts there, various times that the municipal affairs has sent us, and I've noticed that we're usually a little higher on utilities, but we're usually a little lower on the property taxes. So I think it balances out.
Well, there's also something to be said about some of these other communities you compare with. Not all of their streets are paved either. So their costs are lower wherever they have to dig up gravel. But the time comes when finally they're going to pave their streets. That's going to change dramatically. Their costs are going to double.
And when Raymond start to reevaluate their rates and bring them up to cost, they're going to have to change that significantly.
You can't give it away for nothing always.
And so, although I agree with the comparable, we still have to realize that theirs are not our current figures.
Okay.
This is a little bit off the subject, but with the new services running down 2nd Avenue, or wherever we're doing it, are we bringing them up to the new service hookup? Like if they've got a 1/2-inch water line, are we bringing it up to 3/4 or 1 inch? We're reconnecting up to a 1/2 inch?
If I might, what we've done, normally what we'll do is we will send out a notice to the residents saying if you want to change out your service lines, now's the time. Because we got the road tore up and you won't have to pay for all those costs. So we did have, these on 2nd Avenue on those 2 blocks, we had one resident who changed sewer and, I don't know if they did water. They might have just done their sewer line at the time.
And there's no charge for that change up?
Yeah, we'll charge them, they actually had someone come in and do all the trenching on their property, and then, because we're already disconnecting their water line and reconnecting anyway, or their sewer line, whatever the case might be, I think our costs are pretty negligible, because the road's already tore up. And then they trenched it from the house to the street. But we did give a letter to everybody within the construction area that they had that opportunity, and it would keep the costs down.
Great. Yes, Mark?
Just some clarification on, as far as what you're looking for, what you're comfortable with on that margin. Like, the cost is 4,400. Originally, we had 5,000 in there because we traditionally had a margin in there for that offsite levy. Are you okay with the 5,000, or are you leaning more towards the 4,400, which is the cost?
Go ahead.
How can, what I need to understand one more time is what you plan on doing with the model you're presenting the following years. You said you will have an inflation factor built in. So what are we looking at for the following years?
So what was in your background, or I think that the bylaw is in there.
It's your summaries in there, but it has a
Okay.
table.
Well, what I had in there was 5,000 and then a $250 increase each year for 3 years, so.
Right, so it's a 5%.
5,250, yeah.
So you're looking at 5%, the same. Okay, thanks.
One other thing, Councillor Creed, just, and I'm not trying to complicate what you're just getting after here, but, and you probably mentioned this, the 4,400 is an average. We
Right.
win some and we lose some, and you may
Yeah.
have a year when you win them all, and you may have a year when you lose them all. But, you know, we've picked an average, so identifying that margin can be tricky. It's a margin
Right.
on the average.
Yeah.
Right, which
Um,
mean we might recoup, we might not. We're
Yeah.
not sure of that. Okay.
Depending
so
on
it
which side of the
kinda-
street they're
That's
on.
right.
So
Yeah.
it kind of makes
How
sense.
wide the street is.
And if there's new sidewalk or,
Right, yeah.
lots of variables, but.
So basically, we're trying to cover the cost there on that. So I wonder, you know, with the inflation, if that's, is that a reasonable inflationary rate?
Is it
You
too
know,
much?
I don't know, I'm just asking that
5%?
question, is that you feel like that would be reasonable?
Well, 5% represent the rate, the increase on labor, material, equipment.
It would be at the upper end of.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking it might
So
be.
it's 4% more.
Well, I guess, yeah, I guess.
2.5%.
Yeah, three's kind of where we're,
Yeah.
long-term averages are at right now.
Mhm.
So that's maybe something we need to kind of
So
look at.
if we wanted to, we could tweak that one slightly.
Mhm.
Okay.
More than 3%.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, well, we can discuss that, and like I say, when we get to 8B, we'll talk a little bit about having, you know, if we want to do a public hearing on that too, so.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank
So,
Thanks, Auden.
so let's go back to 8A now, the draft of the council procedural bylaw. So basically, we have incorporated the amendments.
Where are you at?
This is
7A.
7A.
Thank you.
So 7A, so the changes, one of them was, you know, so that the council, you know, in case a council person doesn't feel they're being heard, Jeff has added that one
On the
paragraph. Also, the order of business, that was changed, you know, he's highlighted consent agenda, and we wonder, you know, if we want to keep the consent, he's added a little time element on the delegation, 15 minutes, and then some time on the committee of the whole. Those are things that have been added to, you know, to the original bylaw. Everything else is as it has been in the past. But so, is there anything, you know, on the original bylaw or on the, you know, the changes that we have any issues with that we want to address? Yeah.
I like it as it's.
As it is, okay.
Put together, yeah.
All right, Jeff?
If I might, just for a little more background, the elaboration on CCW was a recommendation from Cuff, and he was right. We never had any terms of reference in there for that. It didn't talk about what the agenda was, time it started, when it was, so that was added. And then the other piece, why it's in there, And now I forgot what it was, so let me find it. Oh, the 15 minutes. It seemed like a small thing, but it was different than what the policy said. They had different times, and he actually recommended, and one of his recommendations was to review that policy. So I thought, well, I'll make them the same anyway, and then we can go from there, and it's on the agenda a little later. The consent agenda I just threw out there. I'm not sure we're all terribly comfortable with it. It's fairly benign, it's not gonna hurt us, but I'm happy while we're making amendments, if it's just not something we think is effective for us, now's the time. Aside from doing a full amendment.
Yeah, yes, would you like to?
The problem with the consent agenda that I can see is that if we had in the past accepted by way of motion all our correspondence, I would say it would make sense to have then all the correspondence as part of the consent agenda, do one motion, move forward. But it never was the case. Therefore, it almost looked a little redundant to have, although I was all for it, more I analyze it, more I think, maybe it's not really worth the time and effort.
It's like today's agenda.
Can do
We
it.
have a consent agenda, and then we have, the approval of the agenda,
Yeah.
Yeah,
which would be under the consent agenda normally.
well, actually, it's another motion. that the
They're all the
consent-
same thing.
Yeah,
So,
and I didn't put anything on the consent agenda, because I figured we'd get through just as fast without it.
yeah. So I think
Yeah,
the
right.
consent agenda was meant to save time. But in fact, the way it is, we're not saving time because we
Skip
still
it
have to
over.
look at the correspondence.
We might debate the consent agenda as much as we would the
Exactly.
other things.
So I'm almost wondering if we are not creating ourselves more work that we need to.
We tend to debate the merits of the consent agenda longer than it would take to
I know.
adopt the
So I'm
consent
just-
agenda.
I don't know how you feel, but
See, some councils would, by motion, adopt every individual committee report too. That was the other thing, when you read Cutts'
Right.
recommendation, he said you would put all your committee reports and all your correspondence, but you as a council don't do that, which, by the way, I'm not suggesting you do. It would be great if there was 40 items under there because we adopted by motion every single committee report and every single piece of
we
correspondence.
never have done
Which
that.
no.
So with the way that our council functions, I don't think that we really need it. So, I don't know. How does the rest of the council feel? Should we keep it, or should we just have?
I don't think we need it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the purpose of the consent agenda to start with.
Okay, all
I
right.
do like it.
So maybe we can,
I like the idea that it was presented.
yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not
It's not
opposed to it, but
Yeah, I mean-
it's sure not doing for us
We
what
could-
originally looked at.
We could leave it on there and just kind of skip over it for the 99% of the time, but
Then why have it there?
Why
So-
have it?
then, yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly.
Sounds good, yeah, all right.
Maybe we should.
Okay. Okay, I think that's our consensus is we don't need the consent agenda, so.
Yeah, I'll bring this back. next
Okay, the only thing that I was looking at, Jeff, on other things is that there is under orders of business, it says that council will be provided with the materials by 4:30 on Friday. That's fine, and we usually do get that, but I just wondered if you wanted to put some kind of an out in there for yourself for things like AUMA when you're,
He just tells us he's going to give it to us.
Yeah,
Friday
but
anyway.
that's
when you
it,
say or as soon
yeah.
as possible.
What's that number, Councillor?
It's 17.
Okay, thank you.
And I just wondered if there's something, maybe you could put a little caveat in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Such as,
No,
or
but-
As soon as
or a
possible.
notification about
Yeah,
when to
well-
expect it, or something like that.
But
You shall receive the agenda or notification of when it will be forthcoming by
Yes.
4:30 on Friday, something like that.
But it says shall, it doesn't say must.
Well,
Shall
shall is usually
mean-
Yeah, most of
is
it's
usually
usually
a
shall,
must.
it's gotta be there.
Shall is less than must.
Yes,
In legal terms.
I'll take it out on either one.
yeah, that was just the question, is it?
Change shall to may, and might.
As a council, we understand that, that there may be times when, like say with AUMA, when you're scrambling to get that agenda together, but if you need to put some kind of an escape clause in there for you,
Okay.
that would be okay.
Okay, that sounds good.
So, all right. Everything else good on our procedural bylaw? No other issues with it? Everything else looks fine to me, so. Okay, we'll move on to public presentation to council policy 7B. And you have the public presentation. I think I was on council when we came up with that policy. The question I had with the administration is how we use that form, and he says, no, we haven't used that form with every delegation. So the form is nice, I think, in certain cases, but maybe the policy could be amended to say we could use the form, but we don't have to use the form.
It says
Well-
this form must be returned.
Yeah, so Jeff? Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that, well, I wanted to review it for two reasons. One, CUF recommended we did, but the second one is it contains some wording, like Councillor Barnes just said, that someone has to have me this form a week prior to the meeting, or I'm supposed to turn them away from the
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
a lot of times, I have lots of time to prepare if they get to me the Wednesday before or
Yeah.
the Thursday if it's a fairly small issue. So I just want some discussion about how rigid you may want that to be interpreted, because I'd sure hate to turn somebody away when we would have ample time to prepare and be ready for them. If they take little work or homework to prepare.
We're not a city of 80,000 people, we're
Yeah.
a city of 3,500. And I think presentations to council are very important, given that you have adequate enough time
Okay.
to prepare.
So-
Okay, Mayor? Go ahead.
So should it be worded, in fact, more towards your time frame rather than all time frame? Meaning that if you can accommodate it, you will do all you can to accommodate that presentation at the next meeting.
Well, I think it
that something
touches
you
on
could do?
that. It talks about under the process that upon the receipt of any application, here's the options I have.
Yeah, but the form is not
The form is
congruent.
rigid, yes.
It's not congruent with
Yeah.
the text.
Yeah,
So this is what needs to be fixed, is the
So-
wording on a form.
yeah. Councillor Creed, I thought, had a really good point about the form. When we talked and we reviewed the agenda. Perhaps the form shouldn't be something that restricts the presentation, but helps frame and accommodate the presentation.
Right.
That it's actually a tool to help the presenter frame up their presentation to council, and not so much something that's going to eliminate them from being able to present to council.
Yeah, I think.
And I like that. I think that's very accommodating, and maybe we can take that notion and really tweak that form a bit.
Maybe the form.
Change the name on there to your name.
Yeah, I realize that's.
Yeah, sure, that's one other thing.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe the form should reflect the purpose of having that form filled, which is to have that background that council requires in order to be able to make proper decision. And therefore, the need for a certain time given to administration to get the package ready for us to make sense of it.
So,
Because essentially, that's the purpose of it all, is for us to make sense.
so what my suggestion to Jeff was is that, we had a presentation from
Yeah.
Axia. He's very comfortable, but occasionally there's a citizen who has an issue who doesn't express themselves well.
That could-
And if you had that form so that you could give them a little direction, a little encouragement, so that they kind of knew what they were saying and could present more comfortably, I think that would be the purpose of
Yeah.
having that form. And that was my recommendation for the use of that form.
Yeah, my thinking on it is, we really don't need much preparation if they're just trying to come and present.
Well, it
We
depends.
do need some kind of information and background if they need a decision right away. So, I mean, that's where we can sit here and listen to a presentation, say thank you very much, and not deal with it for 3 months. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because they come to present doesn't mean that we as a council have to decide something that day.
Or
So-
should you generally?
You shouldn't.
Right, right. So again, I'm with Councillor Bengry, you know, it's a town of 3,500, if somebody wants to be heard, let's hear them.
Yeah.
And then we can discuss what to do about it, you know, in an appropriate and timely fashion afterward.
Yeah.
I suppose,
Yeah, this is Councillor Bengry.
But we've already given the authority to our CAO to determine, you know, the presentation and the proper procedure for the presentation, so let's leave it at that. Let's not cloud the issue. You know, that's what Jeff's job is to bring these presentations forward to council.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I agree.
I was gonna say, with determining the presentation, some presentations are immediate. I mean, there are emergencies and they have to present it. But if it's just some information that can take some time, I agree with Councillor Bangry that Jeff, he knows, he understands how much demand there is on that thing to be heard and to have a decision made. And if it requires an immediate decision, then by all means, this stuff's must be done, must have that form done, and we need to get it so that we can have the background. But if it's something that you determine isn't so immediate, then you can determine how lax it needs to be, you know?
One thing I do appreciate within the policy, and I've used it already, is that, and some of you will recall if you're in council, why this policy was put in place is sometimes we'll get residents who come to council, don't get the answer they wanted, just want to come back, but there's no new information to present. So the policy does specify that, look, if you're not bringing anything new back to the table,
Yeah.
council doesn't want to entertain the delegation. I've used that.
Yeah.
And I think there are some pieces in here that well, actually, most of the policy I quite like. It's the cooperation of the form and the policy that I'm not really overjoyed with. But I do like some of the criteria in there. It gives some discretion that has helped in the past.
Over here.
Well, Jeff, maybe for the next council meeting or city council, I don't know when you would look at that, if you could kind of work on that form to make it congruent with the text, I think it would be a better tool for us all.
Okay, I'll bring back tweet to that.
Also, Jeff, I'd like you to see you strike out that one line there, note failure to provide a written copy of your presentation.
Yeah,
Will
what's this?
result in the processing of this request to be delayed. You know, hey,
It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. So
That's no presentation.
So I think the idea is make it more accommodating. Councillor.
I actually think it's really important that we have a good idea of what somebody's
Background.
presenting on before they come to present.
Yeah.
Sure.
And prior to being on council, when I made presentations to council, I always submitted a written presentation beforehand of what I wanted to talk to them about. I think it's important. I think not just for us, but I think it helps the person presenting to be able to put things into a concise thing. They've got 15 minutes including questions. If they haven't put together a presentation before they get to us, it's not going to be 15 minutes. And quite often, it helps us to facilitate what other questions we might want to ask. I think it's an important part to be there. I think it's important that we maintain an open policy that invites people to make those presentations. Like I said, we're 3,500 people.
But
Access to council is
Yeah.
important.
But Councillor, isn't that determination of our CAO? That he sits down with that individual and say, okay, your presentation is going to go like this. If you want, I will help you in your presentation.
So if you look at the way that this is and what I've heard from Jeff, is that this gives him the framework to be able to say, this is a tool that allows Jeff to be able to help to do that. That occasionally to have the out to be able to say, look, you're just bringing back something that's already been decided with no new information, council doesn't want to hear it. Those kinds of rules inside of the policy back up our CAO to allow him to be able to diplomatically say no sometimes when it needs to be that way.
I think the other reason why we need a written representation of what they're going to present is because we have had people make presentations and go on forever with multiple items that aren't on the...
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
like I said, it's needs to facilitate and
So you want to stop the rambling?
and if, you know, and if the administration needs to help the person a little bit, I don't see a problem with that.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I remember some presentations that dealt with issues with billing, with things like that, where people didn't feel comfortable that administration had dealt with them appropriately. They wanted to come here, but in order for us to understand the whole issue, we needed administration to be well versed into all the past, which went back sometime 5 years, in order for them to dig out all the material, so that when we addressed question to administration, they knew what the answer was, rather than to leave us thinking, okay, we need another meeting for them to be up to speed, for us to become up to speed and be able to make a decision. That way, they were ready, we got the answer, we were able to make a decision fairly rapidly. And I thought that was a good reason why that tool should be there.
Yeah, I think I have a kind of feeling how council feels.
Yeah.
Jeff, can you just kind of repeat back to us what you've kind of heard from the council so that we...
Sure. Here's the notes I took. Look at the form to be more accommodating to help those who want to come to council. Change to make sure the form and the references within the policy are more complementary. Maintain an open policy that accommodates people to present to council, but with productive and structured rules.
Okay.
I think that would
Is
be
that-
right.
Capture it?
One last thought on that, and this is just me speaking as a Joe citizen, you know, scared to come and deal with, you know, stuff like this. If that form were just simplified and were 1 page instead of 2, try to strip out some of the, what appears to be legal,
Sure.
you know, stuff, and just keep it, you know, hey, here's our one form, just fill that out so we know what you're gonna talk about. I think that's a little less, you know, good grief, how many pages is this form? Does it need my signature?
Yeah,
Okay.
simple's good. Okay, thank you.
Gotcha.
I think we're good then.
Okay.
Let's move on to 7C, the draft policy for employee service recognition and accommodation policy. So policy E32 is, as you see, is a draft policy to kind of consolidate. You've got policy E28, E30, and E31, and so he's tried to kind of combine those into one policy. So if you had a chance to look at that, is there any comments?
I have one comment. When you look under commendation, this comes from policy E31, Jeff. And E31, it seems to me that there are criteria that were given regarding the awarding of this amount. This disappeared out of that in a new policy. And it's funny that it disappeared because as I read that bylaw, I had put in a margin criteria. What are the criteria for the awarding? And all of a sudden I realized the old policy had them, but the new doesn't.
Okay.
And maybe we should keep those criteria.
So some of those,
We generalized it by saying that they would provide incentive and reward for commendable effort and performance, but I have no issue tweaking this at all. This is our first go at it, so yeah.
No, I just thought if it was a little clearer, maybe as to how it's done, unless you do it with your employee group, I don't know.
Councillor Bengry, you have a comment?
I love this. You know, if you put in 35 years, you get $350. Talk about cheap.
You got paid for 35.
But you're getting paid, yeah.
No, I mean, to me, this is absolutely ludicrous. I mean, it's just a cheap way of recognizing your employees. Give them a golden watch and a handshake and kick them out the door sort of thing. I mean, you want to retain good employees and a good working relationship with your employees. And $35 or $50 isn't going to do that.
And you were working
Where-
for the
where is
government,
the-
you didn't even get that.
Well, I don't care what you work for the government. You're working for the town of Cardston.
Yeah.
And there is a distinct difference.
Yeah.
I mean, what goes on in the government goes on in the government, what goes on in Cardston goes in Cardston. And
Well, there-
that's just my feeling. I mean, this is.
Yeah, I don't think it's the amount, I think it's the intent, and, you know, so, you know, just knowing that you're appreciated is important. For me, I mean, I worked for the town, I worked, you know, at the cemetery for a number of years, and they gave me a little plaque, and, you know, I mean, I'm not going to ask for, you know, them to repay me for the whole time or anything like that.
No, nobody would, Councillor, but I'm just saying, I think we need to look at this structure.
You're thinking after 5 years, you should be able to have dinner at the steakhouse for 2 instead of just for 1?
Dairy Queen for 2.
I'm not there for that.
Yeah, there's,
I don't know if I
Go ahead.
could comment too.
Sorry.
I looked at these and I thought, whoop-de-doo, there's no big deal to me. I didn't think it was a big incentive, but I like the plaque idea, but when you start throwing money in there, then it becomes chintzy.
well, the thing.
And let me explain myself. I want to finish this off. I've got lots of recognition plaques, but I had a company I was working for that used to give a nice plaque, had a big presentation, big dinner, then they cut out the dinner, and then they started getting rid of the plaque and sent you the piece of paper that they would have put on the plaque. And I saw it cheapen, and I don't want us to be cheap either, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that if we're going to do something, make it a little more appreciative. I mean, that's, you know, 5 years, $10 a year. They're worth more than that. Recognition, I think.
Well, like I say, there's lots of things that, you know, when I took organizational management, there's a list of things that provide for employee satisfaction, and then a separate list of things that provide for employee dissatisfaction. And you can never pay enough to make people satisfied, but they can be dissatisfied with their wages. So yeah, you're right. When you start putting monetary amounts in there, it becomes a, you know, maybe could be a sore spot. Maybe monetary amounts are a dangerous thing. Maybe you should just give them the dinner and the plaque and show them appreciation. I don't know, because, you know, like how much, you know, it's going to be different for a lot of different people. So, you know, I don't know. Personally, I'm okay with it, but what's your feeling that the rest of the council mayor?
Have you ever asked the employees what they thought?
That's a good
Employee
question.
Association, have they had any input?
I haven't talked to the association about it specifically, no.
Should we maybe try to understand
would that
what
be-
they think?
Would that be a valuable thing or a dangerous thing?
It'd be dangerous.
But it can be very dangerous, no doubt.
Yeah.
If I don't see this, I don't think anyone, and I may be wrong, anyone within the organization sees this as part of their compensation package.
Yes.
They don't see it as a salary bump. And the president of the association happens to be taking minutes over there, so we could maybe quiz her a bit, but that might not be appropriate. But what I see is, you know, we're going to in December have 3 recognitions. I have a 10, a 20, and a 25. And the intent of this is really find a gift that's fit to the person, that you can give them something nice, they come to council, they receive their plaque and a gift. And it's just it's just a nice memento, but I think it's taken in the spirit that it's intended,
Right.
just as a memento. I don't think it's intended to be, wow, after all this is the bonus check I get. It's not that at all. We give $50 ones at the end of the year for those, but that's another story.
Yeah.
So I don't know that, I hope it's not interpreted as a slight because the amount is low. It's really just meant to recognize that achievement and give a gift that fits the person up to a certain amount. That was the intent behind it. It's something that's been done since the beginning of time. I actually bumped the amounts a little bit.
Quite a bit.
From before.
I can see.
While still trying to be careful. Because, you know, if we do 3 of them this year, that's going to be 250, 450, it'll be $600. $550 this year, which isn't a huge amount, don't get me wrong, but it's not the only thing we do to recognize staff either.
Yeah, like everybody gets an annual bonus, like you said.
Yeah, we do those things at Christmas, and we
You get a
we all
turkey and a
go
ham
for
or
staff
whatever.
parties and things like
Most of
that.
the
So,
We get
Still
those.
go out jackets?
every 5 years.
I was just on that. This is very petty. But
Yeah.
the fact that we're doing that every 5 years on a very odd year, I'm wondering if that wouldn't be a little more appropriate to just kind of bump that up 2 years, give one in 2015, 2020, 2025. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out. That puts a little work to somebody in the office to get jacket sizes ready for Christmas this year, but, you know, I know we had a big turnover, I mean, not huge, but we had quite a few people change in our staff this year, and Bobby doesn't have a coat. I'd hate for him to wait 2 years, so.
Just for the record, he owns a coat.
Oh,
I saw him wear one this morning.
He's not gonna freeze to death in the dark.
I'm just thinking, if I worked, you know, I think
You got a cold
the even years there, the 2020, 2025, 2030 coat, jacket, you know, anyway.
All right,
You just change that from the
well, I don't know.
2017 jacket, just doesn't have the nice ring to it.
We don't put the year on it for what it's worth, but yeah, that's just when they started the policy, right?
Exactly.
So that's when it began.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Can we move on?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Let's go to
It's quick to volunteer.
8A, planning session. So we'd like to do our strategic planning probably end of January, first part of February. That would probably seem like a good time to do it.
Quick question.
Yes.
I've seen Black Sands management, and I know.
Well, this was last year's agenda.
Last year.
I put that in just for reference of what the topics were last
Right.
year.
So
I'm vaguely recalling though that in that session, we scheduled kind of maybe a walkthrough in the fall with that, at the end of their season. Did that ever?
So we're doing it administratively tomorrow.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I just recall that we as council were going to be shown something.
if you want to go, then just,
Walk it.
Yeah, if I could on that, under the contract, at the end of the season, we as the town go through and inspect capital improvements. We specifically look at hole 16 and 17 for any movement. There's a number of things within the contract that we are privy to inspect at the end of the year. Just so happens that's tomorrow.
Right.
So I have, Hawken is going, and the Black Sands has provided interim financial statements to kind of reconcile what we see. And Randy is going with them to look at the ground, so that, we're doing that administratively.
okay, so any counselors want to come, they can just.
Well, I suppose I wouldn't chase you off, but I'm not going, so that's, we can let Hawken know we might have company.
Hawken and
If there's not a bunch
Randy.
of snow on the ground.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So we don't have to finalize everything, but if you can start to think of ideas.
When do we want to have it again?
Well, okay, yeah, maybe that's what we should talk about
We could
first,
maybe
is the
narrow that
date.
down.
Let me just look at my calendar and see what would be a good time if we go, like, say, February or the end of January. You want to do it, like, we've done it on a Friday, Saturday in other years.
Last year, I think we just
did
did
Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah.
What did it at the museum? if you
Yeah, we
remember?
did it at the
froze
museum.
there.
We could do the Remington.
They got the furnace fixed down
Then we
there.
could do it down at the
Lots of
Remington
options.
Carry Center, or we could do it up here,
Cobblestone, Remington here, whichever would work.
whatever would.
So I just want to start
This
getting
is our
some.
retreat, you know.
Yeah, it's our retreat, we could retreat.
Well, you know what, we're protecting the citizens' dogs, not a bad thing.
know.
So I just want to start preparing whatever background
Yeah.
in the next month or so.
So we can, like say, either.
January 30th, February 6th, that's in the area we've had it before.
Mhm.
January 30th, okay,
That's a Saturday.
Saturday, yeah,
I would prefer that.
January 30th.
myself would prefer that.
As soon as you start getting into February, things get a little.
Oh, because you're starting to get into tax stuff, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe February, or January 30th. Is the rest of the council okay with January 30th? Do we
Pencil
put
that
that down for a
down.
date? Yeah,
Can I
maybe.
ask a question? Regarding the agenda package item, if we have some ideas, what, do you want us to send them to you, Jeff, or?
If you have, we can do it a couple of ways. We can talk about it next meeting,
Okay.
one, collectively, or you can start to bombard me with ideas and I can bring back an inventory. Because
Okay.
certainly we can't do 30 agenda items.
What did we start at?
Yeah.
What time we starting on that meeting?
Oh, you mean
normally
to-
nine.
8 to
o'clock.
4,
Eight.
I think, last
Yeah.
time, 8 to 3.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, okay, and last time I made
You agree? Or
lasagna.
whatever, something. We won't complain if you.
You guys want something?
Lasagna, I like lasagna.
Yeah.
You like the lasagna?
To be honest, that's why I ran for office.
Okay, yeah. So.
I don't know if you have any ideas off the top of your head now. There's
Where are we gonna do it? Do we decide, or we gonna let?
Where?
Figure that out later?
Venue, we could either,
Right, venue?
we could either do it here,
Kinda like
or
here.
say maybe the
Okay,
Remington
last-
conference room, down at the Remington
Can I-
Center, or, yeah, whatever.
Last time we had difficulty because this room was used. What we
Yeah.
need to figure out if we're in
Right,
conflict or
right,
not,
we have
that's
conflict.
essentially
Well,
what the
let's book
story
it now.
is. Yeah, but it all
All
depends.
things considered, or you just find come here?
Yeah, I am, I mean, whatever.
Well, you have enough space for your documents and all that you don't have to truck them out of here, so
Yes,
it's
well,
maybe not a bad
You've
thing.
got good access to all this information.
I'd rather have it here.
Okay.
So, we could try here for first.
So-
choice.
Yeah.
So this is one.
Lasagna,
Yeah.
salad, crepes,
Okay,
what do you?
Right.
Jill said the building is open right now. so-
okay,
Well, there
so
you
go.
we booked that,
Okay,
that'd be good.
you got that?
Yeah, one thought that I had, because we've talked a little bit about it, is maybe, you know, the handy bus, or talk about age-friendly community, some of those items, but might be something we could address. Maybe any other ideas right now at this point?
I have a few bylaw things I've had aside I want to bring as far as some
Yeah.
discussion on bylaw, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, maybe.
Mine also is bylaw reviews that I think we should do regarding fines. Because I really realized that when Jeff went to court, our policies were not robust enough in order to be able to give the judge what he needed to be able to pass a proper judgment. Therefore, my point of view, we need to start to review that. And I looked at some of the policies that Lethbridge has, and the fine is significantly higher. And I'm sure that they are going to court on a regular basis and must know what works, they have legal working for them in their own municipal building. And so I think we would be well to start to have administration reviews those and see what we
Find
can
out what they're
do.
doing in Lethbridge, what their fines are, and get a comparison.
And try to understand what,
They have an in-house lawyer too.
yeah, and to understand what would work for us when we need to go to court, so that we don't get the judge to give us slap on
$50
our
fine and
hands
sub
and
sandwich.
go nowhere and waste a lot of
There's no
our time and
fine.
money.
Yeah, well, definitely
Okay,
enforcement things. Okay,
So,
so there's a couple items
Yeah,
there.
so I've got that,
So-
I've got fiber, age-friendly community, penalties and bylaws.
Yeah.
So there's some things, and we can bring things back, or is this gonna come up on our agenda again?
I certainly can put it on the next one, or a week from tonight.
Okay.
So I can put it on that agenda, and we've got time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But by December, I'd like to know, because I can get some people
Can you get-
assigned to start doing
Yeah,
background work.
Okay, one more.
Can we look also again at renewable energy and the present state of,
Actually, by that time, we will have our proposal back.
yeah.
So that would be the time to
And
get
the slope stability is also something else I think we need to kind of look at again to try to make sure that we don't have to sink tons of money to fix those
Okay.
things.
And also flood remediation.
Yeah, okay.
Sounds like we got a
good.
meeting.
There's some good thoughts there, we can work on that. And I imagine we'll probably want to review the last year's strategic plan a little bit and see where, direction, if we're still the same. Go ahead. One.
The RCMP, it would be maybe well to have them come again and to try to work on priorities for the upcoming year.
Yeah, basically we're going to talk about bylaw enforcement.
One question, again, looking forward, this year we were going to tackle land use. What was the next big policy we were tackling after that?
No, we did MVP and land use, I don't have one,
Were we reworking recreation or something, or is that already?
not from a
I don't
policy.
recall. I don't know, anyway, I just thought if there was one in succession, maybe we should discuss it lightly
Okay.
in that meeting.
Wasn't that the capital infrastructure?
Or just start over. and
Wasn't
tackle them
wasn't
when
it
we did 9 years ago.
infrastructure we were going to look at?
Well, the infrastructure master plan will be updated next year, for sure.
That's what
Yeah.
we were, I think that was the next
Maybe
thing.
look at those.
So, yeah, we can touch on that. So like in the hierarchy of planning,
You know what you should work on, if I could, is it's your intermunicipal development plan.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
You
that,
should create a strategy for that.
yeah, I think you're right, especially in the light of the new government marching orders. More
Let's
than
find a
ever.
delegation.
Yeah. So we-
But what you're gonna find in the new rendition of the act is it's going to become the superior planning document to your local municipal development plan.
Yeah,
And right now, we don't have one. Well, we don't have an updated one, I should say.
right.
well, I
Well,
think-
maybe
So that might
we
be a
can-
good topic for
Good
discussion.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, so let's just keep our thinking caps on
Yeah.
and we'll move forward on that. So I'd like to move to 8B, the public utility bylaw. Now, Jeff did a little research. We're not required to have public hearings on the utility rate bylaws. I think it's a good idea personally because it affects people in the community. And it gives us more transparency if we advertise it, gives people an opportunity to come and speak to it. You know, we can't force them to come, but I think we need to give them that opportunity. But so if we agree to do that, November 24th would be the time to have the public hearing for the distribution access bylaw and the utility rate bylaw. Mayor?
When do we have the open house,
That's coming up
the
next.
community open house?
Oh, you mean,
Awareness.
oh, community awareness is 30th, the 30th of November. That's the,
I
we'll
wondered,
talk about that.
I wondered if we, instead of having a public hearing where we normally have nobody showing up, would it be more advisable to have something at the community awareness where we have quite a bit of people that will be there and we'll be able to know what the changes are. So they're there and we can make a point.
Make that for our stamp.
That's a good,
What's
No,
the new
no,
utility rate gonna be?
But I'm trying to
What's
figure
the
out
Water rate gonna be, what's the electrical rate gonna be?
if
And
we
then you get
are,
a stamp if we get it right.
if we are going to have, if the objective is to have people to come to understand what's going on, we in the past have totally figured out that public hearing doesn't work. Although it's important, it doesn't work. But this will work by default. The people are already there. And so those who are informed will then inform those around them, the neighbors. My point of view, I would favor the November 30th, which is a time of change. Well, that's a time of change.
yeah, it would delay, I mean, you know, we'd have to back off on passing, you know, if we did it the 24th, then we could probably, you know, if we passed first reading, you know, at the next council meeting, then, you know, then we could, you know, if the public hearing, we could pass second, third. It would delay, you know, if we do it at community awareness, then we probably want to delay passing the final into first council in December, or,
Which is okay, it has to be
and
done.
if that's not going to put us up against any,
So ideally, but again, there's nothing that says we have to. Ideally, if we pass it by the end of November, all the new rate structure can be in place for January 1.
Okay,
But if it's not, it's simply in place for February 1.
all right. So if it's a matter of getting things in place, maybe we'll do the public open house and we still do something on awareness.
So,
yeah. Well, I mean, is it essential that we, you know, have it in place January 1st? I mean, you know, if we start it in February,
Well,
I think it makes it easier for you.
my point of view, the
Beginning here.
budget already has been designed with those changes in place.
Mm-hmm.
So we would better follow suit, which is have the public bylaw, the public hearing.
on the
If nobody
24th.
comes, nobody comes, but we'll make them aware the following week.
Talked about it at awareness night.
Yeah,
And, I
we
mean,
should do both.
definitely it would be an information piece, yeah, Councillor.
I think the thing to think about here is, I think it's great for us to, at the community awareness, put something out there, but that kind of environment's not going to replace a public hearing.
No,
It's not it's more of an
It's a-
information.
it's a soundbite.
So if we're gonna do a public hearing type thing, we should do it on the 24th there, and then we can
Yeah, move forward.
Move forward with things.
No,
And then say in community
Yeah.
awareness, here's what's happening.
from a budget perspective, it makes total sense.
I mean, we will put it in the paper, you know, the public hearing. I don't know if there's any, I guess we could put it on the website too, on the Facebook, town Facebook website. I mean, you know, at least get the information out there as much as possible. And then a public hearing is a formal process, and it gives people that opportunity.
Yeah, I suppose you're right.
So,
But,
yeah. No, it was a good idea, and I like that, but, yeah, maybe the formal public hearing is, yeah.
would it be possible if we put it on Facebook and all those, the website, to try to make sure that people understand that all what we're looking at is transmission and distribution and what it means?
So you're actually looking at two bylaws.
Two bylaws.
Utility bylaws, water, sewer,
And the other
everything.
one.
Your distribution access tariff will be the distribution and transmission on the electric.
It'll be
Right.
both,
You might get more people come to the public hearing, if it's out there and they see it.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
That's a good idea.
So are we proposing the 24th then? Is that-
24th, that's
Yeah,
what
for the
we're holding.
public hearing.
It has to be the second council meeting in November.
But the idea is we would make decisions that day though.
Then,
Yeah,
you know,
it has to
if,
be just before
yeah,
also.
if the public hearing goes well, I mean, if people, you know,
Yeah.
if there's no major objection, then we can pass second and third reading.
Right.
Yeah, if something comes out of the public hearing, don't pass those other readings. Let's take it back to the drawing board, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario is we have 1/12 of the revenue, the difference in the revenue we predicted. It's gonna be pretty minuscule in the scope of the budget.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure, if there's any level of discomfort after the public hearings, we retool.
Mhm.
Okay,
But yes, if everything goes well, I'd love to see both those pass on the 24th.
okay.
Okay, well, let's aim for that, but let's try to get as much information out
Yeah.
as possible. I don't know what, you know, if you put on Facebook, say, this is what your rate might be, I don't know if that would
Get them,
pique interest to say this is how much your bill might be going up on the average. I don't know if that would.
Just put a really big number on there.
Yeah. So anyways, do we have consensus then to go with the public hearing on the 24th from council?
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so right away.
Is that a regular council night?
That's regular council night. That'll
It'll be an
a
hour before
Yeah.
that.
second council.
Well,
So
normally, Mayor, you just do it
during council, we adjourn to a public hearing
and
and then we
go back to
reconvene
council.
back to
Okay.
council. So.
All right, thanks.
So that'll be on the agenda for the 24th. Okay, 8C, land use bylaw open house. We have a proposal for November 17th, which would be the Tuesday that we don't have the council meeting in November. Is the council okay? You know, he's got 5 to 8, which would be, if we had a council meeting, that would be our council meeting time. But it's time that we don't have the council meeting, and Ryan's prepared for that date.
Do we all need to be here then for that?
Can we be here? Can the council
I can be here. I will be here.
Anybody that can be here? Okay.
I don't know.
I mean, it's not you know, not mandatory that every council member be here, you know, I mean. it would
What
be
time
nice.
will it start at?
5. And you don't have to be there the whole time.
And,
You can-
yeah, is it a set time, 5 to 7, or?
5 to 8
8.
is, 5 to 8 is
8.
what he's proposed, so,
But if you're there for.
You can be there for the first hour or the last
So,
hour.
How many donuts you gonna have left over?
You saying you want me to order high? Is that what you're saying? 'Cause-
yeah.
I suspect no matter what amount you order.
Anyway, Councillor.
You will have some attendees of this, for sure.
There should be some.
But I don't expect throwing.
That's what, so that's on November
17th.
17th,
It's the
5
third,
To 8.
5 to 8.
To
it's the third Tuesday. Third
Send us
Tuesday.
that, I know, it's turned up.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I'll try to be here.
All right, well, we'll plan on that then. Go ahead with that. Okay, the next item, 8D, Community Awareness Night, which we've talked about a little bit.
What have you got?
Administration has got 5-year capital budget, swimming pool building preliminary drawings,
Oh, yeah.
utility rate bylaw, which we've talked about, it should be good to bring that
Okay.
up, and land use bylaw changes as items that we will, you know, have information on.
What about Axiom?
We could, yeah, definitely.
If they can make it, would you like him to have the end of a booth to talk to people? Okay.
I
If
think it would
that's
be a
something
good
that
thing.
we'd like to get behind, then I think that community awareness is the best
Perfect time.
opportunity to do it.
We'll renew it, the Axia Awareness Night.
Well,
Well, tomorrow, is there a time for change or something like that? Well, that's part of the change, really.
one thing I'd like to see us do, Jeff, maybe if we could contact, say, Vulcan and the other communities and just kind of get a feel for, you know, for how it's gone in their communities. If it's,
I've talked to Nobleford. I had a meeting with Kurt a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
Inadvertently, we sat by each other. He was, I mean, they haven't gone live yet, so as far as the service, he couldn't say, but he was very impressed with the contractor they brought in.
okay. Mhm.
He said that they're really courteous, cleaned up everything, everything's been really smooth there.
Mhm. I'd like to hear what Vulcan's experience was, I'm just curious to,
Vulcan was the first one, was
Yeah. so yeah, maybe that, you know, that,
I don't know that Vulcan's gonna be the best example.
No.
You'll see the worst case scenario anyways.
well, that's what I'm wondering, if,
The first one's usually your worst.
that's,
I
yeah.
mean, you know,
I
it
mean,
was the
hopefully
very
it goes
first,
in.
it was the very first
Okay.
kick at the can over there.
Yeah, actually, tomorrow, myself and Councillor Curl from the county are attending a community discussion conference Southwest, where all of the communities thinking about coming on board are meeting together tomorrow evening, so
Mm,
I can report on that when I get back to the next council.
that'd be great.
Yeah, that's all we're Southwest. Yeah, right now I can tell you, everybody's excited and grateful because the other prospect was they'd have to do it themselves as communities.
Yeah.
They'd have to run the lines of fiber by themselves the way Waterton did.
Mhm.
And Waterton got a huge federal grant for that, so.
But they
the
still
rest of us
spent
would
a
think
lot of
that was
money
good.
themselves,
Oh, they did,
over
yeah,
$2 million.
absolutely. So,
And that was
yeah,
what I wanted to reveal.
the general feeling is they're very grateful someone like Axis is willing to come along.
Yeah,
So
well, so-
this saves a lot of hassle and administrative.
I know their EDO.
Well, for the rest of us,
Send
all
me
other
a-
communities.
Yeah, if they could be prepared, I mean, you know, see if they're prepared to come. I think it'd be a good thing to have them here, yeah, for the community awareness night. The only other thing on the community awareness night is that, you know, it's nice to have some interactive activity, and I haven't seen anything, and I don't know, do we have any ideas of how we can put any of these, or does the staff want to come up with an idea?
I haven't gone any further than topic.
Topic.
So execution, I haven't.
Well,
gone-
I guess we still got a little time to go over that. You know, maybe if council has any ideas, or, you know, as you kick it around with the staff, something that, you know, an interactive activity is always kind of what they like to see at the community awareness night, so.
Did a
Right.
marshmallow stuffing contest or something?
Something like that.
My new
They'd be lining up at our
clerk starts on Monday, so I'll put him to the task.
See what kind of talent
Are
you've
they
got
gonna
there.
have lots of goodies and stuff?
Fishing pond.
Like getting flashlights?
There you go, okay. Well, we'll come up with that. Okay, thank you. And we've already talked about the counselors that will, staff that will,
What time,
Be
have
here.
you got the time frame for us?
for community awareness.
I don't
Starts
have it on.
It officially starts at 6:30, but it actually starts at 6.
6.
So,
It's 6 to 8.
and I think,
Well, and I'm sure if it didn't get written down last week, I will not be here sadly. I'll be gone that whole week. So.
no, I think I committed to be there the first 2 hours.
be
I'll probably be there the whole time.
I would do that too.
Communities in Bloom, I'll be there for that booth as well, but,
If you want interactive, you could just put a Skype screen at me and I can just say, ask Peavoy. I'll say, I don't know what you're talking about.
Can,
we could have them throw marshmallows at the screen.
Or paint you. There you go. Throw some saran on that TV and throw pies at it all that.
Okay, the mayor has a thought here.
could we figure out who is able to come that night so that we know how to man that booth?
I'll be there.
there.
I'll be
Okay,
there.
so I think the rest of the
Alright, so,
council will all be
It
here.
doesn't mean that you have to be there the whole time. If you can give 1 hour, great. But so long we can.
It goes quickly though.
It does, it goes very.
It goes very.
So I think we'll probably have good enough attendance there from council. So, okay, good.
Remembrance Day's coming up, too?
Yeah, and I guess I'm up on.
You're the master of
Is it the high school?
Is the high school, yeah. I guess we'll talk about that, it's on next week's agenda, or we just go ahead with it? We just do it?
We'll get you briefed when you're the deputy and other than that, yeah.
Okay, it just happens.
And then there's a dinner at the Legion after, or how many are gonna attend that?
I will be
I'll be
there.
going.
I have to talk every time, so I'll be
Okay.
there.
Yeah. Councillor?
Is there something we can do to clean the monument out there?
That's what I looked at, it's
Pretty
bronze. It's,
Jill would vouch for me that we've been having this discussion in the office. They're gonna try bringing down our Hotsy washer and see if that'll take some of that off, and then we'll see if we gotta get a chemical agent to help with it.
No, is this on the bronze?
No, on the
mount, on the granite?
It's quite black on the top.
and the plaque is gone a little bit green.
Yeah, that's gonna oxidize.
Yeah, the bronze does that. I don't know, you can send them in and
I think the granite leaves.
we get the granite cleaned, okay.
Yeah, we're gonna work on that, Councillor.
Sounds like the administration's working on that, so,
Okay.
good, all right, great. Okay, I'd like to move to 8E, Alberta Centre for Sustainable Rural Communities. And Jeff has informed me this is an event that is a valuable event, but it happens to be on the same
Yeah.
same time as our emergency training exercise. So he suggested maybe one councillor might want to go.
I looked at it too, with South Grove, they're looking to know if I would be there as council night. But because it has to do with economic development, I wondered if maybe Councillor Barfuss could be the one delegated that day to go, if it's possible, Councillor.
Yep, that's fine.
It's in Lethbridge?
Yeah, it's something that we really need enough people around the table for council, but if we could delegate one councillor, it would be great.
And I'll send a staff member as well. So I'll probably
So-
send Tyler.
Okay.
To get
Councillor Barfuss, would you be willing to do that?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I already jotted it down, so.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
That'd be great. We appreciate that. And
We don't, do we have a time for it? It's on the
I don't,
agenda,
yes,
it
that's
doesn't
the
say
kicker.
anything.
We're
It's
hoping
not-
it doesn't go later because we have council that night.
Right.
So I'm really hopeful it's an 8 to 3, something like that, 9 to 3.
Yeah.
Normally I would have just not worried about it, but we have a number of things, but
We have training
regional
that they.
collaboration with First Nations, regional collaborations with your neighbors there, engaging your community. I thought it looks like a really good agenda, but we also need the rest of you at that training
Yeah.
that day for
That's
emergency.
emergency training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When does that start at?
I don't know if it's certain yet. I'll get that
It
sorted.
says here, or the county office?
it'll be before, it'll end before council.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's only gonna be like 2 hours long,
So,
Or what?
probably over lunch again.
Lunch meeting,
Something
yeah.
like we did last time.
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah, this will be more of like a tabletop
yeah,
exercise.
that's right. We'll have a
The
scenario.
scenario and,
Yeah.
Is it the same guy facilitating?
Yeah, Mark will be back.
Yeah, he's good.
so it should be good, so, okay.
Now,
Great.
who all's attending that? Is that the county people that are coming to that as well?
To be determined. Mark's coming to see me next week to
I
set
see.
the scenario, and then we'll identify who we want at the table.
Okay.
All right, good. So let's see. Item 8F is the Brownlee Emerging Trends Seminar, which is the same, I mean, we've been to it before in Calgary. It's in February 11th, and it's a Thursday. And I've always been able to get it done in time to get back to my halfway meeting, so
They're good meetings.
so you've got on your
Different
package
topics all
the
the time, they're
topics
always
that
up
they've,
different.
so is council all
I will be going.
interested in attending that? So it sounds like we are.
Do you want a hotel the night before, or do you want an early morning?
not gonna write up
If the weather-
Yeah, it starts at
If
8.
the weather is
Yeah.
bad, we would be wiser
You
to
better
leave
be
the
out
night
the night.
Yeah, you
before.
better to go in the daylight, yep.
That's kind of what we've done in the past, so.
I think maybe it'll be wiser.
It's the same place,
I don't know.
Coast Hotel that we've been to
Okay.
before, so.
So I'll get rooms and registration for everybody right now.
Yeah.
so,
And
okay.
if you look at it, there is one item, the item B, going regional. I mean, it's all over the map.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that'll be something that's, up and coming. I mean, we're gonna have to understand it.
NDP government.
Yeah, well,
Well, the new act is gonna put some guidelines on that.
Yeah.
Right, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Ontario, the fiasco they've had with it, it's been awful.
Okay, so we'll plan on Brownlee. So if there's no items under questions, we'll go on to the correspondence.
I have some questions.
Then-
Or unless you want it under other, it's just information gathering, I want to get some information, that's all. I was gonna ask a couple of questions about the paving and volunteer organizations and that are needy people.
Okay.
Now, if you want me to put it off for later, I'll do it later.
No.
We're doing not
Okay.
too bad on our
All right,
time. I
so
want to be done by 6.
I noticed there, that we put out a feeler for people who'd like to volunteer. Have you had any applications or inquiries about some of the things?
We just put it out last night, yesterday.
you?
So I had one application and one inquiry yesterday. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're only 24 hours in.
Okay. So we've got, what, 4 positions or 5 positions?
Yeah, I think there's 4.
From which
Communities in
organizations?
Bloom and
FCSS, Communities in Bloom, and
I understand Chamber needs two new, but they're not
Oh,
part of
sure.
our, they're not part of our chamber.
Yeah.
But they're not.
Not a town organization.
Okay.
Jeff, I forgot to mention that we might need new people on the power committee, but I will need to talk with you.
Yeah, under our new policy, we'll simply post that we're looking for
Yeah.
volunteers for that and
I don't
take
need them until
applications.
January
Yeah.
anyways, so.
You're okay.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that those who will apply get the,
Nope.
they'll have to go
They'll come
through
to
the
council
council
for
for
No,
that, I
but
guess,
this,
anyway, eh?
this is why,
Yeah.
I will come and talk with you, give you an idea.
Yeah, I saw one return on the Facebook saying they'd like a description.
Yeah, which was a great idea, and I wish I had
Yeah.
my communications guy, but we have those dossiers
Uh-huh.
that I'll put on the same page as the application.
I was thinking, if we're going to be putting those out there, I really think it's important that so some training that's given. Maybe we have a meeting here to train people.
Well, once they get on the
about these.
committee, they'll.
Well, it's not always you get on the
No.
committee. I don't trust just going on to committee and saying, "Oh, okay, there you go." You know, I really think that they need to be trained. There's been too many committees that people get on to, and I've heard them come back and say, geez, I got on there and all of a sudden they voted me in as their president. I don't have a clue what the organization is.
Well, you could be called a bishop, that's
So
about the
they
same
need to be
thing.
trained.
Just
That's
meant,
my feeling.
Councillor.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, on our website, we have a list of them,
Mhm.
and so maybe just a little snippet
Yeah.
about what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
it'd be easy to do.
I'm gonna try and get those dossiers up against that right away.
That'd be nice, okay, there.
Okay, Councillor Barnes, talking regarding what you're talking about the need for training.
Mhm.
This is something that I think is very important too. And there is a possibility to get training from the provincial body with Linda Erickson. I
Yeah.
sent Jeff a link regarding that very issue.
Mhm.
I spoke with her and sent Jeff some.
Yeah, I have a contact now that works out of Lethbridge for the provincial government that will come and do committee and board. They're a community development person, and they'll come do some training. So that's something that Shem, when he starts, I'm gonna task him to start communicating with the service clubs and the committees and see if we can integrate some training for them.
And I think it would be appropriate too, along with that, whatever counselor is assigned to that committee, come to that training meeting too. I feel it's important.
Councillor Bengry had a comment.
We need to make sure that the times and the meeting places are all the same on these boards, because, well, for instance, Chinook Foundation does not meet at 5 o'clock.
Oh,
They meet at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock,
Okay,
6 or 6:30.
yeah, if you have changes to be made, by all means, give them to administration, they will correct those
I know
things.
Tara phoned, after the last meeting that came up, and Tara phoned them. I think she said she called almost all of them and got updated times. So you may have the one from the previous meeting. I don't know.
Well, we all just got them in our mail last
Okay,
year.
then there's still some corrections to be made then.
Yeah.
Some that don't even
yes.
have a time on them.
Yes, I will not
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
I have a conflict with 2 of my meetings on the same night,
Oh,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
airport
okay.
and the Ag Society.
The airport's not gonna meet very often.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor, when you will have a conflict, I am the ex officio, send me to wherever.
Okay.
Hope it's not every week.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, did you have a question on the paving you wanted to ask yourself?
Yeah, I want to kind of get an idea on that, on the paving. I know the weather's really, it's dependent on weather when it comes to paving there. But has the prep work now been done for those?
Yeah, they pulled all the paving equipment's here, it's sitting on Second Avenue as of about 3 o'clock. They plan to start in the morning.
Tomorrow morning?
Yeah, if there's no snow on the ground, they'll pave.
They can go.
Yeah, might be small.
Yeah,
So-
they mobilized, they took all their prep stuff out today, but they mobilized all the paving stuff this afternoon.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, yeah, if we don't have 5
I
centimeters of
had to
snow.
laugh on Facebook the other day. People were complaining about the looky-loos, wanting to see what was going on. Gee, I mean, it's of interest. It's good. I think it's good that people want to know what's going on. You know, it's just the neighbors on those streets are concerned about all the people who are up there staring at their street, like, big deal.
Yeah.
You know, that was kind of odd.
All righty.
The problem is, a lot of people are driving to the area that's closed.
Yeah, that was the concern was.
Halloween night.
I live with Councillor Bengry and I can watch our intersection at any time people are moving the barricades to get out. However they got in, I don't know, but they're moving the barricades to get out.
Wow, you shouldn't be doing that.
Okay, well.
Maybe that's what the
yeah.
concern was. I didn't see that component in the concern, so.
Anyway, they're moving ahead with the paving, it looks like it's
Yeah,
gonna get
their
there.
equipment's here, so they're ready to go.
It'll be great, okay.
You need to get
I'll
some
just-
spike strips put in front of the barricades.
Yeah, I
The other
think,
thing, just so you know, it's been a bit of a challenge, is we've had barricades at the end of blocks, so we put the flashing lights on them, and last night those all got busted and broken in pieces, so we can't have nice things, and so we're gonna struggle with how we close roads and try and figure something different, but we had 3 of those broke
That's a
blocks.
scary
too bad.
situation, because you can't see those barricades there.
Well, maybe they need to have some of those illuminated tape on the
Yeah,
things.
we'll put some reflective tape.
You know, reflective
Yeah,
tape,
it would help.
yeah.
But-
Spike strips.
So if they're a little dark tonight, it's because they all got broken.
they broke with the lights, and we put cameras on them.
Go pro.
They have those plastic-
Okay, let's move through the correspondence. I think we can go through the correspondence fairly quickly. Dr. Glenn Jones, and in discussing this with Jeff, he's met with him, and he says it's pretty much the issue has been resolved, so it's.
What did you do to resolve it?
So,
The
well,
issue is-
part of it was just understanding the issue a little bit. The
Uh-huh.
first thing, Councillor Jones, I'm used to calling him Councillor Jones. Doc Jones was concerned that he wasn't authorized to use that road with his team and wagon, which we expressed, of course he is, that's the purpose of the
Yeah.
trail. So he was comfortable with that. He is petitioning here on behalf of a property owner about the fence and us, there's dirt against it and a few things, but the property owner isn't as concerned about it as Dr. Jones is. So I suggested we deal with the property owner and just have it taken care of. So
How are those owners getting access to their backyards?
they can use that road.
They're authorized.
Yeah, so we've said they're one of those authorized, like we use it for parks.
Right.
It used to say no motorized vehicles, that was his initial concern. Well, we drove trucks down there all the time, so we changed it to no unauthorized vehicles.
So property owners are authorized, people that access their property, and
As long as
Hammond's
they're not
authorized,
parking their vehicles.
and
Yeah,
Glenn Jones is authorized
for
for
sure,
carriages,
for
so.
sure. So carriages remain really the intent of the road,
Mhm.
but certainly there's property.
They're an access road for the property owners to their
Yeah.
backyards too.
And we're okay with that.
Okay.
So I think Doc Jones is okay with this,
Mhm. So we've kind of dealt with it.
but he asked that I put it on the agenda. so
Yeah,
there it
okay.
is.
So the next two items are just for information, the introduction of the zone coordinator. Councillor Bengry said he's a nice guy, so maybe we'll get to meet him.
He's in Lethbridge?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
See Old Man Watershed Council report, and I think you also got the full report right in your mailbox, so you can read that. Item D, Our Lady Queen of Peace donation request. I don't know if that really fits our area or not. It's probably not, so unless somebody has a real,
Also no desire to come to it.
yeah, so anyway, that's information. The CFIB municipal spending report, I found it was very interesting, but it's for your information only. So that's
If you can see,
Comment on that.
Cardston is on 12.
Carson. We
on
were in the,
8.
yeah, we weren't too bad.
12.
We were,
12 out of all of
we
them.
were rated a little bit more favorably. I don't know, how they did the ratings exactly, but anyway. But it was good something to keep our eyes on, and maybe when we do our strategic planning, we can consider that as one of the things that we think about as strategic planning. So Anyway, Council, you've been very good tonight, and I don't have anything else on the agenda.
So
Mayor Kronen moves to adjourn. Thank you.
Bravo, Councillor Green.
yeah, I would say that. You really kept it going. Should learn from
Almost got